Hello, it's time for another episode of my autumn series where I make recipes showcasing the produce of the October and November months, and this week it's all about butternut squash, making a brown butter, butternut squash and sage lasagna. Quite hard to say, but this was absolutely delicious, really cozy, really warm. You had the nuttiness from the brown butter, which goes really well with the sweetness of the butternut squash and the sage. We start off with a fair bit of slicing. You want to peel and thinly slice a white onion and try and get it as thin as you can. Then I'm using half a butternut squash for this recipe and peeling it and then again slicing it as thinly as I can and try and keep it an even thickness so it cooks for the same amount of time. I say this, but I didn't get them all the same size. I'm not that precise. So as you can see, you want to try and aim for it to be thin enough that it wobbles. So you can see the thick one, if I shake it about, it stays rigid, but the right thinness, then I shake it about and it wobbles. And that's what we want. Then in an oven-proof dish, I'm going to start by melting some butter. And then I'm going to fry off some sage leaves and fry them off until the butter starts to go moussey and brown, and then my leaves will start to brown as well. At that point I can remove the leaves ready for later, and my butter is nice and brown and ready to use. So then quickly, before the butter starts to brown too much and burn, you want to throw in your thinly sliced onions and just stir them and sweat them off on a very low heat. And then once they've had about 5 minutes to soften, we can put it back on medium heat and go in with our flour. Cook the flour off for a couple of minutes, stirring occasionally before you're ready to add the milk. So the trick with the milk is to add it in slowly, just like a white sauce. So we start off with a little bit, stir it in, it thickens, and you want to avoid having any lumps, so stir it well, and then you can start adding a little bit again, stir it, avoid the lumps, and again and again until you get past that point where it's thickening loads and you're more getting a kind of runny crepe batter consistency. That's when you leave it to simmer, stirring until you get the consistency that is thick enough that you can run your finger through on the back of the spoon and the liquid doesn't move, so you can still see the trace you've left with your finger. And at that point we're done. So then for some extra flavour, take it off the heat. I'm adding lots of nutmeg and some salt. Taste it to make sure you're happy with the seasoning. And then I'm adding a whole bowl of ricotta, stirring that in. Lumps are fine now with the ricotta. And taste it again, that's diluted it, so you might need to add a bit more nutmeg and a bit more salt. And then we can start layering in our butternut squash and our lasagna sheets. So I chose to do this bit by bit to try and get an even coverage of sauce, but you can always try just adding it all in at once and stirring well if you want. But what I'm doing is adding a bit of my butternut squash, a few pasta sheets, stirring it in, and then starting again and doing that until I run out. Then finishing it off with some butternut squash on top, and then finally some cheese. So I've had some leftover smoked cheese in the fridge, so I used that, but any cheese, cheddar, smoked cheddar, whatever will do. The smokiness was very nice though, I have to say. And then a little bit of Parmesan to finish it off. Top off with our fried sage leaves, and then it can go in the oven. Takes about 50 minutes. You just want to get a nice golden brown, even color on top, and to be able to run a knife through like butter. And that's it, it's ready to serve. Feel free to accompany it with a nice salad, and I hope you enjoy. Bon appétit! As always, please make sure to like and subscribe for more every week.